Brayton Sterling with Caldorfire County Fire. Today we're at the Placerville Wildfire Awareness with local agencies, Caldorfire County Fire, Cal Fire, U.S. Forest Service, Tribal Fire, and Fire Safe Council, Caldorfire County Sheriffs, and Placerville PD. Today we're going over how to make your house more fire safe with fire safe resistant materials, and then defensible space with those immediate areas of your structure, making that a safer community. For evacuations, people ask why you don't have a fire evacuation plan. In a wildfire, the fire is dynamic and could be coming from multiple directions. So for an evacuation that's coordinated with law enforcement, to create that fire evacuation plan for that incident. We'll work with law enforcement agencies and they'll coordinate for that evacuation plan to get folks out of that immediate area. Space, defensible space, defensible space. If you go through the booths, there's going to be some good information on structural hardening and defensible space. One of the things I want to touch on is addressing. These are the signs that we'd like to see partially covered, but we need to know your address and it needs to be contrasting. So when the engine's responding to your residence, we need to be able to see it at nighttime if it's raining, snowing, and then driveway access. We're looking for 12-foot wide width and then 15 feet vertical for our fire apparatus to make access to your residence. You see the size of the apparatus outside? Those big engines need to make it in, and they need to be able to get turned around and back out. So we're talking about wildland fires, but this goes for EMS calls or anything in that nature. So as I started in the 90s as a firefighter, a large fire to me back then throughout the state was a 10,000 acre fire. Then they started growing, and now 100,000 acres. Now we're going into hundreds of thousands of acres burning, more steered towards Northern California, closer to home, as Chief was stating. So as these larger fires keep reoccurring, it's really not if, I believe it's going to be when it happens again in our area. We don't want it to happen. It's going to take all of our effort from local, state, federal, and us to make a difference in our community. Again, if you have any questions, we have our booths here to help everyone out. And be safe, do your part. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next speaker, I would just like to take a moment to ask those assembled to think about all the displays that you see from our three major players in the fire world. We have our county fire district, we have Cal Fire, who is their first backup, and we have the U.S. Forest Service, who is also a backup and also defends the forest as a first line. And I would just like everyone to give a nice round of applause to thank all of these organizations for their personnel, for the materials that they brought today to give away to us so we can make ourselves safer, as well as the crews that are outside manning the displays, and also Smokey Bear and Captain Cal. A big round of applause for all their effort today. When I first got involved with Fire Safe Council, one of the first things we've been talking about for years is trim, 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 clear, clear, clear. And one of the other things that we've found out since the massive destructive fires the last 5 years is that ember storm is probably our biggest enemy next to overgrown brush. And the studies that have been done, probably sadly as a result of what's happened in California, confirm that ember storm is another huge thing you need to prepare your house.
Sergeant Chris Corey, Placerville Police Department. Been there about 7 years, and they covered a lot of important issues and items about why we're here, why we're educating you and being prepared. I'm going to focus on evacuation awareness. So up here we have a map that it's basically of the city in our jurisdiction, and it identifies major routes. We're not going to get into the point of telling you exactly where to go and how to evacuate. We want to put it in the hands of the residents and you of identifying multiple routes, 3 or 4 routes that they identified. In case that fire or that emergency starts in any of those areas, you have an alternative route. Road closures are also part of evacuations, so road closures will hinder on your 1 or 2 of your routes maybe, so make sure you have backup routes. All of these zones and update information on the fire. They identified code red. You register for that. We also have city websites. We'll piggyback all those alerts, and we'll put those notices on our website. So you'll be notified, you'll be instructed to, during like evacuation warning. Take that into consideration because a lot of people do sit by and wait for an order. Evacuation warning is the initial step. It's like, this is probably time to get out. You should already be prepared with your routes and your go bags and your materials, and have your routes identified, and that's the time you need to leave. After the warning, then we give an evacuation order, which basically, we want you to leave, we're telling you to leave, the fire is basically on your doorstep, for your best interest in your health and your life, it's time to go. But again, a lot of people wait, so that's when traffic backs up, and then your routes are delayed, and you don't want to get caught in that. So get out early, be prepared, and have those alternate routes set in place. So we have the zones set up here, 1 through 4. We have 4 sergeants at the PD, so each sergeant is more or less identified as being responsible for that zone, not necessarily just in wildfire, but in all aspects of law enforcement in the community. So if you have any questions or concerns, on our website identifies which sergeant you can meet with, and they can identify and answer questions and have a community meeting and whatnot if you want. But each sergeant is specific. I have zone 1 on the top left, so if you have any questions today when I'm done here, please feel free to come forward. We can set up a meeting. I can answer any questions right now after I'm done talking. Yeah, come up and ask some questions. So up on the table we have a list of basically procedures or items that would be good for your go bags and whatnot. Also, don't forget about pets, necessities of pets. In the back corner for large animals, you have horses, goats, cows, whatnot. Make sure they're taken care of. And it's all about being prepared. You don't want, I worked at Caldorfire, and the numerous times I saw a company coming up with a horse trailer trying to find a residence and the best route in to get those animals out of there because they were left behind. Just set up that emergency plan, pre-plan, so you don't get stuck in that pigeonhole in that when the fire is like on your doorstep and you have to.
I'd like to thank Chief Joe Wren, who's here in the audience with us this afternoon, for his continued support from the Placerville Police Department. They're very dedicated to this community and certainly needs to be recognized. The Future Fire Academy, and you see they have a booth back here, and they are a nonprofit organization. They are building a fire academy, and I'm going to allow Anthony Pedro to come up for a couple of minutes and introduce himself and explain the new and growing organization that he's helping to create here in the county.
Thanks for adding us, and we really appreciate that. It was last minute totally. I was at an interview with Atlas. We're trying to work on getting some more projects done for the cadets. So basically, our academy, we're non-traditional, we're a nonprofit fire academy, and we're based out of here, out of the county. I'm from Pollock Pines. This is my neighborhood as well. We know the need for the manpower in the fire service, but it's that to get there. That's the resources. It's hard. You know, if you want to get in the fire service locally, you have to travel to Sacramento or the Bay Area. It's tough, and it costs time. You know, so we're a nonprofit. It's free for the cadets to join the academy. We run an 8-week program, classes on the weekends, so the 9 to 5 working men or women can join. Right now we're targeting just basic 32 wildland firefighting coordinating group, NWCG courses to get folks hired in with the U.S. Forest Service, BLM, private sector. Right now, seasonal employment. We partnered up with local government departments where they could get in as seasonal, sit right in the back seat, but just getting that exposure and getting out there. Right now, during the week, Monday through Friday, we run fuel reduction projects where we do defensible space projects where that's a for-hire service division under our nonprofit, and all proceeds go back to the nonprofit where we can pay the cadets a stipend pay, where now they can earn money out here while training and getting that hands-on experience that's pertinent to the job. Right? So we give, if they don't have work ethic when they come in, when they leave, they're gonna get it. You know, they have to do a minimum amount of training projects when they're out there. We push them at a pace. I'm a professional firefighter myself, and you know, all of our instructors are firefighters as well. So we teach them the standard that they have to hold, and we push them at that hot shot pace that's expected. You know, as a hand crew, you got to set a steady pace. So we really, like yesterday, we knocked out 2 acres in one day, you know. So we partnered up with Hargos Chipping. They also, they provide all the heavy equipment, skid steers, excavators, wood chippers, track chippers, pole saw, chainsaws. We have all the equipment with them. We bring the manpower and we just go out there and get it Monday through Friday. And so we partnered up with EDCO. We teach out of their campus right here in El Dorado. They gave us that campus for free. So round of applause to EDCO, please. So EDCO's been a huge partner. We had the first graduating class last weekend. Ed Monticello came out and gave a great speech. We plan on taking this statewide. Those were his words. You know, that's what we want to do. We want to help out folks. Right now, we're starting from home. You know, I live right behind El Dorado High School. You know, this is our community. We're doing our best. We're trying to help fight the fight. And right now, we're targeting fire prevention. That's through the Defensible Space Projects. So if you know anyone who needs some work done, we'll do it, and we'll do it fast. And also, you know, all the locals in the community are priority. You know, all of our cadets, the last class, graduating class, everyone was local. The next academy, we have 24 people coming through. So yeah, we're excited. The next academy starts first week of April, and we're working towards with Consumnes River College. We just had working on an MOU with them so that way we could have our accreditations. And they offered us their training campus where we could use when we partner up working on it in Cal-Fire, trying to get their curriculum as well, get people hired on with the state. You know, we want to work towards getting our firefighter 1 accreditations where we can teach, and thankfully with them in that partnership, we could have a campus to do that on. They have a huge burn building, 5-story, and some stuff I've never seen before, it's like a concrete river where you can actually put a car in and fill it up with water, fill the river up with water, this concrete river, and then they turn on these pumps and flow water like an actual river, like the ones we have, and then now they can train swiftwater rescue through this. It's crazy what money you can buy, and they have virtual reality stuff, it's crazy, so anyway. So we have those resources through that partnership, but anyway, I just thank you for this time, coming out here speaking. Round of applause for the fire departments coming out here and showing their support. You know, we just want to help get that manpower out there and help fight these fires. So thank you.
Thank you. My name is Alan Thompson. I am the Public Information Officer for the El Dorado County Amateur Radio Club. I'm also a satellite internet installer. And 10 days after the campfire burned through Paradise, I was called up there to help restore cell phone service by installing satellite internet systems at 8 different cell phone towers in and around Paradise and Magalia that had been disabled by the fire. And what I saw out there and what I learned about cell phone technology and about how vulnerable it is, combined with the fact that in California right now, our fire seasons are getting worse. And I'm going to give you a pretty stark statistic. Over the last 90 years, since 1932, the top 20 fires in terms of the acreage that they burned, almost 2/3 of that acreage has been burned up in the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021. Over half of the acreage burned in the last 90 years by the top 20 fires occurred in the last 2 years. 2020, we had the first gigafire, which was the August Complex Fire. That's the first fire to burn over 1 million acres in California. 1% of the state of California. 4% of the state of California, over 4% of the state of California in 2020 alone burned from all the fires we had. Then we have, in 2021, we had the Dixie Fire. The Dixie Fire was the first fire, almost a gigafire. It was 960,000 acres. It was the first fire that we know about that burned clear up over the Sierras and down the other side. Guess which one was the second fire? The Caldorfire was the second fire in 2021 to burn over the top of the Sierras and down the other side. Came within 5 miles of South Lake Tahoe. Over 50,000 people were evacuated. You know, in our neighborhood radio watch program, we've been involved with this for about 3 years. And I gotta tell you though, no matter all the preparation that we do, all the training that we do, it's not real until it's real close. And that was too close. And it may not be the last time. And, you know, this is not going to change anytime soon. Things are going to get worse before they get better, I'm sure of it. What I saw when I was up in Paradise was the vulnerability of these cell phone towers for several reasons. First of all, Paradise is built on a volcanic knoll, a little bit like Pollock Pines in some ways. All of the utilities are overhead because the digging is so hard they can't put utilities underground. So all the power lines are overhead, the fiber optic cable was overhead, and the regular two-wire telephone lines are overhead. The first thing that the fire did when it came into Paradise was to set fire to the wooden telephone poles and start taking out the power and start taking out the internet. Now, most of these cell phone towers have some kind of backup power, but it's all across the map. It's anywhere from 30 minutes to maybe 30 hours, or sometimes longer. There is no regulation on cell phone providers, on telco providers, to have a minimum amount of backup power. Now, there's starting to be some regulation, but they consistently will fight any regulation to try and get them to maintain a minimum level of backup power at these sites. The telco industry spends a whopping $320,000 per day on lobbying efforts with the Congress and with the FCC to prevent any kind of legislation being passed that's going to be detrimental to their business model, that's going to cause them to change the way that they do business. They could be putting in towers with 100 feet of dispensable space. What we saw in Paradise were towers that had brush that grew right up over the fence. And when the fire came in, it went right up over that fence and set fire to equipment that was inside the tower and disabled the cell phone service there. By 10:30 in the morning, 2.5 hours after that fire entered Paradise, cell phone service was down throughout most of that area. AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, all lost cell phone power, lost cell phone signal because not just that the power went down, but the internet cable was burned. And I didn't even realize that cell phone towers needed an internet connection to operate. I just thought that, you know, they used cell phone signals and they sent those to other cell phone towers and that's how the whole neighborhood connected. But they actually have to have the internet. Everything is internet dependent now. How many of you experienced one of the recent power shutdowns that PG&E had where we lost internet service and we lost cell phone service? Within an hour of them shutting down power in October of 2021, we lost internet service at our address and our cell phone service was severely hampered. Why? Because of just the things we mentioned. These towers depend upon power, they depend upon internet, so if either of those go down, the cell phone goes down. So I just want to point out to you that, I mean, we all have these things. We all carry them in our pocket, right? You know, the Eagles got it right when they said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. Here it is. Over 50% of the U.S. population only has a cell phone as their sole means of communication. It's the way that they get their sports, their news, their entertainment. It's the way they stay in touch with the world. It's also the way they get their emergency information too, right? Because this is the system that Code Red works through. And by the way, I want to echo some things that have been said by the first responders here. If you are not signed up for Code Red, you need to be signed up for Code Red. It is an opt-in system. It will not work if you don't sign up for it. Only 25% of the folks in Paradise bothered to sign up for Code Red. On the day of that fire, most people up there never got any warnings, never got any evacuation orders because they had not signed up. So what we've come up with, and this developed from what we saw in Paradise and our experience there, and knowing that the stuff is going to get worse. We're looking for a backup system so that when cell phones don't work and there's an emergency and you need help, you've got an alternative means of communication. That's what the Neighborhood Radio Watch program is. It's a ham radio, non-ham radio partnership, and most of the folks that are in it are not amateur radio operators. Why? Well, if you've ever looked into ham radio, you know that you need to take a test. You need to know something about electronics and be able to pass that test in order to get a license. Now, most of us simply are not going to do that. It's just too much work. It's too far afield from what we're interested in. So this is the next best thing. It's the closest thing we can get to ham radio without you having to pass a test. It does take a license, and we can talk about that more if you want to come over to the table. But it's a partnership so that when there is a situation and the cell phones don't work, you've got a backup system to communicate. It's not a replacement. It's not a replacement system for 911. It's not a replacement system for code red. It's a backup system when all else fails. And we mentioned this before, that if you're using one of these, you already know how to use a radio. This is a radio. It's just another kind of radio that is a single point of failure system that requires all this other technology in order for it to function. This radio is a radio that doesn't require all that other technology to operate. I can talk on this radio right now and I can reach other people that have the same kind of radio, tuned to the same channel, and they can hear me without any cell phone tower. Now we do have what are called repeaters. We've got radio repeaters. They act sort of like a cell phone tower. We put them up high, they can hear for a long distance, and they will help extend our signal. But we can still use these even if that repeater wasn't there. Let's talk a little bit more about what it is not, okay? It's not social media. Neighborhood Radio Watch program is not social media, it's not Facebook, it's not nextdoor.com. We don't deal in hearsay, we don't deal in opinions or rumors. We only deal in vetted information. If there is an incident, we've got people that are monitoring, police and fire, scanners, and then also official websites for official information about evacuation warnings and evacuation orders. We don't initiate evacuation orders. We don't initiate evacuation warnings. We don't get people panicked and getting into their car and taking off and clogging up the roads and make it harder for these first responders around here to do their job. We are not first responders. And we've already today acknowledged the first responders a couple of times. We can't acknowledge their contribution enough and what they do every day to keep us all safe. So let's give them one more round of applause. And we're also not heroes. We don't ask our people to do dangerous things. We don't ask them to put their life in jeopardy, because all that's going to do is make it harder for these guys to do their job, isn't it? Because now they got to go save those guys. So when you get an order to go, an evacuation order, you go. Just as they were saying, don't wait. You should already be prepared. In fact, a lot of people have a rule of thumb that when they get an evacuation warning, that's the time to go. And then figure it out later. But at least be prepared. I'm going to tell you one story about one of our Neighborhood Radio Watch members who was in Grizzly Flats. The day that the Caldorfire blew up, she had been monitoring the Neighborhood Radio Watch program that we had in that area. We've got about 60 people that are out there. They were functioning constantly, 24/7. They had people on the radio that were relaying vetted information about what was happening. She was prepared. She had already loaded her car. She was ready to go. And she did get a code red evacuation order. But as soon as she got that, she immediately left. A few days later, the fire chief out there called to tell her that her house was a total loss. He also told her that if she hadn't left when she did, she may not have made it off the mountain alive. And she feels that the Neighborhood Radio Watch program was instrumental in her being alive today. We couldn't ask for a better outcome than that. All we're trying to do is to keep people safe with this program. And it is starting to expand. We just a few days ago on March 10th, we had a story that broke on Cap Radio in Vicki Gonzalez's Insight program. Did a 15-minute program on the Neighborhood Radio Watch program up here. And then we've been contacted now by ABC Channel 10. So they want to do a story on the program too. Why? Because people need to have some solution here to feel safer. You know, the state of California and federal money and county money, hundreds of millions of dollars here, trying to deal with this problem, trying to mitigate this problem that we're facing with communications issues and disruptions, PG&E shutting off the power, and these big fires. And we're just doing this as a bootstrap operation. I'm going to show you this. This is an example of one of our radios. This is the same kind of radio. If you notice that most of the first responders are carrying a radio sort of similar to this one, Doesn't have a lot of buttons on the front of it. We like it that way. Now our ham radio guys, they love radios that have lots of buttons. But for our neighborhood radio watch program, we like these radios because we don't want people to get confused about how to use a radio. We buy these used. They come out of public service, but they end up on eBay or other places. And this is a $500 radio, new folks. $500. We get them, we recondition them, put new batteries in them, program them for our networks around here, and then we sell them at our cost, about $75. $75 for a $500 radio, and it works really well. And I see if I can actually do a demo here. Now we're standing inside of a building, okay? But we've got a repeater that's over here near Sacramento Hill that covers the Placerville area. And it will reach about 15 to 20 miles. And we've got people up and down. I don't know if any of them will be listening right now, but let's just find out. This is WRCT 301 Allen, and I am at the Placerville Fire and Safe Council community event here, and we're just testing out the radio system. Thank you, Golden. Thanks for coming back.
WRKX-386, Matt, Placerville, Greenstone Country. You're clear full 5 to repeater.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate that. And I want to point out to you that Colton is clear out by Saluti Cellars, out on Grizzly Flat Road. And Matt, as he identified, is down there in Greenstone. So that's some pretty good coverage. And I'm just standing inside the building. Now, I couldn't do that really with a cell phone to be able to talk to more than one person at a time, could I? This is a one-to-one device. You can call one cell phone number if everything's working, but that's it. But with our system, it's a one-to-many device. So that signal can reach hundreds of radios all at the same time. So you might think of it like I guess maybe like a telephone party line, only it's a telephone party line that's really resilient. And I always have to take a look at my notes here, make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, yeah, so Caldorfire. So one of the things that happened during the Caldorfire is that we had 2 of our neighborhood radio watch programs. One is in the area around Mount Ockham, Grizzly Flats, in that area. That was very active, and then also Pollock Pines and Camino, because they were affected too, weren't they? We had folks that were on the radio 24/7 on both of those neighborhood radio watch programs, relaying information about the latest orders, the latest evacuation warnings, and the latest orders. And then also traffic conditions on the road, which was the best way to go out if High Park Road was clogged up, right? Things like that. So people were checking on that. We also assisted animal rescue efforts and animal welfare efforts, and I wasn't even aware that this was such a thing. I didn't even know about this, that during these evacuations, we have agencies, public agencies from all over the state of California that send up volunteers to come help do animal welfare calls to people's homes, because people evacuate, they've got livestock, they couldn't load their horses, they couldn't load their cattle, they couldn't load their emus. We have emus out there. They couldn't load their llamas. And in a lot of cases, people couldn't find their dogs and cats. They suddenly are heading out of town and the animals are gone someplace, right? What can be worse? You've been evacuated and you're worried about your pets at home. You don't know if they're alive or dead. So these folks come from all over the state of California to go out, they'll do a route, they'll feed the animals, they'll water them, they'll make sure that they're okay. In many cases, they brought animals back. They'll bring them to they had a large animal rescue site that was at the Amador County Fairgrounds, right? And then small animal up here, right? So our club assisted them with communications. Why? Because you got all these different served agencies from all over the state of California. Sometimes their radios are not interoperable. They come from different areas. They're programmed for different frequencies in those areas. So our 25 of our club members, and also neighborhood radio watch members, accompanied these folks on over 1,800 missions to go take a look at the animals, make sure that they're okay. Then in December, we had Snowmageddon, right, in the Georgetown Divide area and up in Pollock Pines and Commuter where things ground to a halt. And again, the Neighborhood Radio Watch program and the El Dorado County Amateur Radio Club were very active with assisting folks up there in those areas by providing radio communications. One of the things that was really striking, and there's a photo of it, and thanks Tony for this great board, there's a photo of the emergency telephone. You can see it here on the right in the middle. And that's on the wall of the Volcanoville Fire Department. That's a 24/7, it's supposed to be 24/7 emergency phone. So if you're in that area and you're stranded, you can get on that phone and you can call for help. There were 200 power lines that were down by fallen trees. When those power lines went down, guess what else went down? All of the internet signal that was being carried on the wires below the power lines also went down. That phone right there was completely inoperable. So now you got an emergency telephone. It's an emergency, you can't get through. So that's why we've got this. What we hope to do here in this next year is start expanding this program even more, especially like in the areas like Georgetown. So it's not just fires. We also have all these terrific storms. And there's one other issue too that we're a little concerned about. In fact, getting more concerned about every day. This whole telephone system that we have is what's called IP protocol, internet protocol based. It means that it uses the internet for all of these communications. And what have we been seeing for the last couple of years here with our internet service? We've had people attacking our infrastructure, taking it down with ransomware, and basically compromising systems. 3 weeks ago, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the Department of Homeland Security issued a warning to companies to be aware that our telecommunications infrastructure, specifically mentioned, may be under attack from cyber warfare. What could be more tantalizing for somebody who wants to do damage to us by tampering with it? So there are other issues besides just fires, and that's what we're looking at here through 2023 is how can we expand the program and be able to anticipate some of these other types of issues that might happen. Thank you, everybody. If you get a chance, stop by the table. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Also out in the parking lot is Tribal Fire, and they're kind of a new thing for us. That's Crew 42. Has got a nice display out there right now with a small Type 6 engine. They've got their hand tools on display. You can ask them about the quality of the sharpening. They like that. But another great addition to our community, Placerville, and the surrounding county. A resource that works in coordination with Camino Dispatch. They are yet another big set of hands. Good afternoon, Chief Whit.
All right, thank you. Hey, good morning. Hey, just we'll make it really fast on behalf of Tribal Fire. Thanks for being out here. Thanks for caring about your community. A little bit about Tribal Fire. We started off with a dream. John, raise your hand. Tayaba. Hi. John had a dream. He's a tribal member. He had a dream of being able to develop a fire crew, a hand crew here at the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians, and we were able to develop that. We now have a Type 2 IA hand crew, which means we can initial attack fire directly. We have 18 to 22 people during the summertime. We're able to go in a nationwide response. We're nationally qualified, nationally certified. It's all because of that guy's dream and forte, so to speak. But really, we wanted to do is we wanted to augment the fire service here in Placer, or in my previous life, here in El Dorado County. We want to add to the fire protection. Everybody here has been preaching at you about, what they do, what you can do, how you can communicate, and everything else like that. Let me just tell you two little things that I would like for you guys to go home with. Number one, tell your neighbors and friends about your fire safe councils. So go out there and preach the word, preach everything else, saying, hey, we got to be better at being fire safe here in California, period. The second thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go home and take an examination of really, truly, are you ready to go? We've heard about escape routes. We've talked about safety zones. We've talked about this is the way you get out and being communicated, listen to law enforcement about which direction you can get out of your neighborhoods and stuff like that. I get it. But do you have the basics for 3 days worth of supplies at home? A lot of people do not. And if they don't, I would like you to go tell your neighbors about that. For example, 3 or 4 cases of water. Now, I know if not everybody's a Costco member here, but Costco's about $4 for a case of 35 waters, right? And you can't believe how valuable that becomes, that simple little thing. So water, some canned foods, some basic supplies, toilet paper, medicines, that type of stuff. There's lots of lists on the internet, but again, what's really important is that you as an individual and your families are self-reliant when an emergency happens. He just stated, is the fires going to stop because last year was a bad fire season? Probably not. Probably not. Are you ready to go when the next one hits? And it could be anything. We talked about fire quite a bit. What about earthquakes? What about rains? What about extreme snow? All those types of things are emergency issues for you. You need to be self-reliant and self-stable. If you need help with that, reach out. But you people that are involved in the fire safe councils and involved in your community, go out and spread that word about being ready to go at a moment's notice, and literally ready to go. Like Chief Cordero said, when we ask you to leave, it's not because we're saying pretty please. We're really concerned about your life, your well-being, and making sure that you get everything out that you need. So a little bit of pre-planning on your part goes a long way. And on behalf of Tribal Fire, thank you for letting us serve the community. We appreciate you. We love you. Thanks a lot for everything that you do. If you have any questions, we'll be here for a little bit. God bless you.
I would like to invite David Zielinski to come up, who is the chair of the Placerville Fire Safe Council.
You want me to say something?
Certainly. And again, as I mentioned this morning, it was this man's persistence in not going to let the issue die that created what we are today. And we want to recognize his efforts and also all of the other members of the Fire Safe Council that helped put this together. David, did you have any specifics?
I've got laryngitis. It's not COVID though. So unless I say that, I promise. Anyway, so our mantra is very simple. All we want to do is save 10,000 lives, and so help us do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, we are always looking for new members, so if anybody's interested, just please contact one of the folks from the Placerville Fire Safe Council. We're here. And again, I'd just like to thank all of our display folks, the different organizations that come forward. You know, you don't think about El Dorado County Water Agency, but without this water agency, we wouldn't have any water in this county. And if we didn't have EID, the city of Placerville is like one of their biggest wholesale customer. So we buy all the water from these folks, and the El Dorado County Water Agency does a tremendous job behind the scenes to ensure that this county and the city have livable water. And it's a really important mission that I don't think a lot of folks appreciate. And the EID message also very simple. Can you get to your fire hydrant in your neighborhood? And that's a pretty graphic examples over here that we all can help out with. So with that, if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and close the formal presentations. We'll be here until 3 o'clock. Please look at the booths, and again, thank you very much for everything that you have done.
I want to thank Mark Acuna. I think we did a great job today organizing this and all our speakers, and I think he deserves a warm welcome.
I'm from VetMed Trail Packs, and we kind of focus on livestock and horse evacuation and safety equipment. And a lot of the gear that we carry is based on what is needed to help evacuate and identify animals in an emergency situation. We've worked at several different fires in the area and identified some difficulties with identifying animals and taking proper care of them with special needs. And so a lot of the stuff that we have are to prepare you to get out and get out quickly. with your animals. It can be small animals, chickens, cats, dogs, goats, sheep, pigs, horses, donkeys, cattle. We can help identify who they belong to and what their needs are through our items here. I have a website, www.vetmedtrail.com.
Some of the contract work that we've scheduled before is raking around propane tanks to get dirt down to bare dirt. We've also had picked up pine needles where somebody had put windrows of them around their house, which would be a very hazardous fire condition. We cut small trees, we limb up trees to remove the ladder fuel. Some of the end results are like this down here, where there's brush and things right next to the house. After the work is completed, it's cleared of the brush so that this house is safe from a fire migrating towards it. We've often cut dry grass around the home so that the home is safe. So this is what the program is all about.